Game of Thrones was ruthless. It killed our favorite characters without warning and broke our hearts repeatedly. But let's be real, not every death in Westeros was tragic. Some characters absolutely had it coming. Today we're talking about the villains, monsters, and power-hungry lunatics who got exactly what they deserved. These are the people who made us cheer when they finally bit the dust. Joffrey Baratheon. Let's start with the most obvious one. King Joffrey Baratheon was arguably the most hated character in television history, and that's saying something. From the moment we met this blonde psychopath, we knew he was trouble. He started as a spoiled prince who got Arya's friend Mycah killed for absolutely no reason, then forced Ned Stark to execute Sansa's direwolf lady. That was just the beginning. When Joffrey took the Iron Throne, things got infinitely worse. He ordered the execution of Ned Stark, breaking a promise of mercy he made to Sansa right there in front of everyone. Then he forced Sansa to look at her father's severed head on a spike. This kid wasn't just cruel, he was a sadist who got off on other people's pain. He had Sansa beaten by his Kingsguard for sport, ordered the massacre of Robert Baratheon's bastard children, and constantly humiliated anyone within reach. In the books, he even cut open a pregnant cat just to see what was inside when he was a child. The guy was a monster from birth. What makes Joffrey even more infuriating is that he was a complete coward. He talked big about being a warrior king but never actually fought his own battles. During the Battle of Blackwater, he ran away from the battlefield when things got tough, leaving his men to die. He would order people executed but never had the guts to swing the sword himself. So when he died at his own wedding, choking on poison in the Purple Wedding, it was one of the most satisfying moments in television history. Lady Olenna Tyrell orchestrated the whole thing to protect her granddaughter Marjorie from this monster. Watching him claw at his throat, blood pouring from his mouth, his face turning purple, we finally got justice. Even George R.R. Martin admitted he tried to make viewers feel guilty for enjoying Joffrey's death, but honestly, nobody felt bad. This 13-year-old tyrant had it coming, and his death was one of the rare moments in Game of Thrones where the bad guy actually got what he deserved. Ramsay Bolton. If you thought Joffrey was bad, Ramsay Bolton took cruelty to a whole new level. Ramsay wasn't just sadistic like Joffrey. He was a genuine psychopath who tortured people for fun and made us sick to our stomachs watching it happen. This guy flayed people alive, hunted women with his dogs for sport, and took pleasure in breaking people mentally and physically. His treatment of Theon Greyjoy was absolutely horrific. Ramsay tortured Theon so brutally that he turned him into Reek, a broken shell of a human being who was terrified of everything. He castrated Theon, flayed parts of his skin, and destroyed him psychologically to the point where Theon forgot who he even was. And Ramsay enjoyed every second of it. Then there was what he did to Sansa Stark. After marrying her, he raped and abused her repeatedly. He murdered his own father Roose Bolton by stabbing him in the chest, then fed his stepmother Valda and his newborn baby brother to his hounds. He murdered countless innocent people, including young boys he passed off as Bran and Rickon Stark. During the Battle of the Bastards, he killed Rickon Stark by shooting him with arrows as the boy ran toward Jon Snow, just to bait Jon into charging. The actor who played Ramsay, Ewan Ryan, even said that Ramsay deserved his horrible, horrible ending. And what an ending it was. After losing the Battle of the Bastards, Jon Snow beat the living hell out of Ramsay, though he stopped short of killing him. Instead, Ramsay was tied up in his kennels with the same starving hounds he had used to murder so many others. Sansa watched as those dogs, who hadn't been fed in 7 days, tore Ramsay apart and ate him alive. It was poetic justice at its finest. The man who used dogs as weapons died by his own dogs. Walder Frey. The Red Wedding. Just saying those 2 words makes Game of Thrones fans angry even years later. And the man responsible for that massacre was Lord Walder Frey, the petty, vindictive lord of the twins who valued his wounded pride over honor and decency. Walder Frey orchestrated one of the most brutal betrayals in the series. Yes, Robb Stark broke his marriage pact by marrying Talisa instead of a Frey daughter. That was wrong. But what Walder did in response was unforgivable. He invited Robb, his mother Catelyn, his pregnant wife Talisa, and their entire army to the twins under guest right, which is supposed to be sacred in Westeros. Then he had them all slaughtered. The Red Wedding was a bloodbath. Talisa was stabbed multiple times in her pregnant belly, killing her and her unborn child. Robb was shot with crossbow bolts and then stabbed in the heart by Ramsay Bolton. Catelyn had her throat slit after watching her son die. Thousands of northern soldiers were massacred in their tents. Walder Frey sat there watching it all with a smug grin, calling himself a kingslayer and acting like he was some great warrior, when really he was just a bitter old man who couldn't handle being slighted. In the books, there are early signs of revenge. Lord Wyman Manderly bakes 3 Freys into pies and serves them to other Freys, though this is only hinted at. But in the show, Arya Stark took revenge to a whole new level. She killed 2 of Walder's sons, baked them into a pie, and fed them to Walder. Then she revealed who she was and slit his throat. But she wasn't done. In the Season 7 premiere, Arya gathered every male member of House Frey under the disguise of Walder Frey's face and poisoned all of them with wine. She told the women to tell everyone that the North remembers and that winter came for House Frey. Wiping out an entire house might seem extreme, but after what they did at the Red Wedding, nobody shed a tear. Cersei Lannister is complicated. She's one of the most compelling villains in television history, and many fans argue she deserved a better death than what she got. But make no mistake, she absolutely deserved to die for her crimes. The question is whether being crushed by rocks was fitting enough. Let's count up what Cersei did over 8 seasons. She was complicit in the death of Ned Stark. She enabled Joffrey's cruelty and stood by while he tortured Sansa. She arranged the murder of Robert Baratheon by getting him too drunk to hunt properly, which led to the boar killing him. She slept with her own brother Jaime and passed their children off as Robert's legitimate heirs, which was treason. She armed the Faith militant and then used them against her enemies. But her worst crime was blowing up the Great September of Baelor with wildfire. Cersei murdered hundreds of people in one explosion, including Margaery Tyrell, Loras Tyrell, Mace Tyrell, the High Sparrow, and countless innocent civilians. She did this knowing it would destroy her son Tommen emotionally. And sure enough, Tommen jumped out of a window to his death after watching his wife Margaery burn. Cersei also betrayed everyone who trusted her. She promised Jon Snow and Daenerys that she would send her armies north to fight the White Walkers, then immediately went back on her word. This betrayal cost her Jaime's loyalty, at least temporarily, but she didn't care. She was willing to let the entire realm burn if it meant she could stay in power. She executed Missandei in cold blood just to provoke Daenerys. In the end, Cersei died when Daenerys destroyed King's Landing with dragon fire and the Red Keep collapsed. She died in Jaime's arms, crushed by falling rubble. Many fans felt this death was too easy for her. They wanted to see her face justice, to answer for all the terrible things she'd done. Actress Lena Headey even said she wanted a better death for Cersei, one where she got to fight back or face her enemies directly. But in a way, dying scared and powerless, clutching onto Jaime and realizing everything she built was crumbling around her, was its own kind of hell for a woman who spent her entire life clawing for power. Viserys Targaryen. Early in Season 1, we met one of the most insufferable characters in the entire series. Viserys Targaryen, Daenerys' older brother, was a whiny, entitled, abusive little weasel who thought he deserved the Iron Throne just because of his last name. Viserys sold his 13-year-old sister to Khal Drogo in exchange for an army. He didn't care about Daenerys at all. She was just a bargaining chip to him, a way to get what he wanted. He constantly threatened her and abused her, warning her not to wake the dragon, as if his anger was somehow her fault. When Daenerys started gaining confidence and respect among the Dothraki, Viserys became jealous and more abusive. The worst moment came when Viserys threatened Daenerys while she was pregnant, drawing his sword in V's Dothrak where weapons are forbidden. He held the blade to her belly and demanded his army. Khal Drogo had finally had enough. He promised Viserys a crown, and he delivered. Drogo melted gold in a pot and poured it over Viserys' head, giving him his golden crown. Viserys died screaming as the molten metal burned through his skull. This was the first truly deserved death in Game of Thrones, and it set the tone for what the show would become. Not every death would be tragic. Sometimes, the bad guys would get what was coming to them. And Viserys, who spent his whole life abusing his sister and feeling entitled to power he never earned, got exactly what he deserved. Meryn Trant. Ser Meryn Trant was everything a knight shouldn't be. He was cruel, cowardly, and used his white cloak as an excuse to do whatever he wanted. He followed Joffrey's orders without question, no matter how sadistic or unnecessary they were. Meryn beat Sansa Stark in front of the entire court on Joffrey's orders. He did it eagerly, taking pleasure in hitting a helpless girl. When Tyrion confronted him and asked what kind of knight beats a helpless girl, Meryn responded that he's the kind that serves his king. He had no honor, no compassion, no decency whatsoever. But what earned Meryn a spot on Arya Stark's kill list was what he did to Syrio Farrell, Arya's sword instructor. When Lannister guards came to capture Arya after Ned's arrest, Syrio defended her with nothing but a wooden practice sword. He took down multiple armored guards before Meryn stepped in with a real sword. We never saw what happened, but it's assumed Meryn killed Syrio, though the show never confirmed it. Years later, Arya found Meryn in Bravos. The show made absolutely sure we knew he deserved to die by showing him in a brothel, beating young girls for his own pleasure. It was disturbing and gratuitous, but it removed any doubt about what kind of person Meryn was. Arya disguised herself as one of the girls and attacked him. She stabbed him repeatedly in the eyes and chest, telling him it was for Syrio Farrell before revealing she was Arya Stark and slitting his throat. It was brutal and bloody, and it was exactly what Meryn deserved. Littlefinger. Peter Baelish, known as Littlefinger, was the puppet master behind so much of the misery in Westeros. He betrayed Ned Stark, which led directly to Ned's execution. He manipulated Lysa Arryn into murdering her own husband Jon Arryn, which kicked off the entire chain of events in the series. He pushed Lysa out the moon door to her death. He sold Sansa to the Boltons, knowing full well what Ramsay would do to her. Littlefinger's whole philosophy was chaos. He believed chaos was a ladder that he could climb to power. And he was good at it. For 7 seasons, he schemed and plotted and manipulated everyone around him, always staying 3 steps ahead. He turned people against each other, started wars, and betrayed anyone who trusted him, all in service of his own ambition. But in Season 7, his luck finally ran out. He tried to turn Sansa and Arya against each other, not realizing the Stark sisters were playing him. In one of the most satisfying scenes of the series, Sansa put Littlefinger on trial for his crimes. She listed everything he'd done, from murdering Lysa to betraying their father. Littlefinger tried to talk his way out of it, tried to manipulate and scheme like he always did, but this time it didn't work. When he realized he was truly cornered, Littlefinger fell apart. He begged for his life, got down on his knees, and pleaded with Sansa. This man who had spent decades manipulating and destroying people became a pathetic mess in his final moments. Arya stepped forward and slit his throat, ending the life of one of the most dangerous men in Westeros. After everything Littlefinger had done, after all the deaths he was responsible for, his execution was long overdue and deeply satisfying. Game of Thrones showed us that in the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. These characters chose to play the game through cruelty, betrayal, and violence. They tortured innocent people, murdered children, broke sacred oaths, and destroyed entire families. When their deaths finally came, whether by poison, dogs, a blade to the throat, or wildfire, they got exactly what they deserved. The show wasn't perfect at delivering justice. Good people died all the time, and sometimes the bad guys won. But when villains like Joffrey, Ramsay, Walder Frey, and Littlefinger finally met their ends, it reminded us that even in the brutal world of Westeros, sometimes karma catches up with you. And when it does, it's absolutely satisfying to watch. These deaths weren't tragedies. They were victories for everyone who suffered because of these monsters. They were proof that no matter how powerful or untouchable someone seems, eventually their crimes catch up with them. And in a show as dark and brutal as Game of Thrones, those rare moments of justice were worth celebrating.